Love you.
119.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Chris Baker.
And I'm Ty Backer.
Welcome to episode 119 of Behind the Toolbelt with TC Backer Construction.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. TC Backer. TC Backer.
Family, TC Backer family, how's everyone doing today, ladies and gentlemen? We have a banging episode for you today. It is Wednesday. It is the best day of the week, and we have a great guest with us today, Jen Silver from Utah Roofing. How's everyone doing today, man? How are you doing, Jen?
I am great. I think that little jingle is going to get stuck in my head.
Good.
It's working.
Like, it's one of those ones that like you will sing over and over and over and over. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should ask Liz how that's working for her in her household right now.
Yeah.
Naveed is killing her with it,
Yes.
from what I hear.
I can only imagine.
Eric Oberum messaged me and said he hated me because of it. He was just kidding. He was like, dude, I so hate you right now.
Like, it's literally playing in my head over and
That's
over.
actually-
And that is,
Go ahead. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I'm just glad that you're in my AirPods, because otherwise my kids would hear it and they'd probably start chanting it. And then I might send you a message and tell you I hate you as well, even though it would not be real.
To kill you.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
I can totally see Eric saying that too.
Yeah. That's actually John Stauffer, our director of marketing and sales, singing that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he did a great job. It was very catchy.
Yeah, I think he did too. He did that.
If that's the first time that you ever heard it, it's already stuck in your head, then it's working.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. I'm just going, TC Backer.
Yeah.
Roofing side. It's just playing.
Yeah. That's the whole point. So
That's
hopefully
awesome.
Everybody in the county has it stuck in their head.
Yes.
Oh, I can
Good
only
job,
imagine.
Johnny. Johnny's actually tuning in right now.
That's what you want, right? Like,
Yes.
Because when somebody thinks roofing, they start singing that, and that's what people call. It's like, I need a new windshield, and my son goes, Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
There you go.
Right? And how many different auto glass places are there? But of course,
Right.
that's, what he knows. And
Brand awareness.
yeah, same thing. Yep,
That's
absolutely.
good stuff, man. That's good stuff. So tell us and our viewers a little bit about yourself, Jen. I know you got a lot going on in the roofing industry. You're a pioneer in our industry. You're a female pioneer in our industry, which we absolutely love. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I became a single mom again in 2016. I've been married before, and I have 2 kids from a previous marriage, and then 2 kids from my second marriage. And I didn't want to go back into restaurants, but I also hadn't worked in about 7 years and didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And as I started to think about different careers and different options, outside sales really seemed to make sense. And construction, being a stable industry, made me have a little bit more security around going into a commission-based job as a sole provider and as a woman. I think that people will probably get mad at me, but I don't look at men and women and think that they're equal. Okay. I don't think that we I don't think I'm equal to anybody else. Now, I don't think that I have less value um, compared to another woman or to another man. But when you look at things from like a very subconscious programming and wiring, I don't believe that we're programmed equally. And as a woman being a sole provider, I think I have more fear around making sure that my family is protected and taken care of maybe than a man would. And I could be wrong because I'm not a man, so I don't know. Um, Thankfully, I'm not a man. But anyways, I had a lot of. I don't know why I felt the need to clarify that right there, but anyways, I had a lot of fear around it, and like choosing something that was stable gave me a little bit of peace of mind. Even though I knew that I would be okay, there was still that background conversation going on around negative self beliefs or whatever. And I took a job at the country club because I didn't know anything about construction and didn't really. I knew that I was smart and I knew that I could learn it really quickly and I had skills and knowledge around it, but I didn't know the things around construction specifically. So I got a job at the country club and bartended and met a bunch of construction company owners and ended up getting into roofing. So
Wow.
that's kind of, and my story's just unfolded since
Yeah,
then.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. That kind of sounds like the guy that owns Monarch Roofing's story as well. I don't know if you heard his story or not, but like, I think he almost said the same exact thing. Worked at an outdoor country club, saw all of the construction trucks coming in, real nice high end trucks, and saw them spending all kinds of money, and it like intrigued him. Like, if these guys can do this, I could do this, probably better.
And I love Martin. I think
Yeah,
Martin's
Martin.
great. He and I are both extra value speakers for GAF. And so we did Northern California together. I think we're doing Denver and possibly Minneapolis together as well coming up. And the bad thing about being a speaker on an event like that is you don't get the opportunity to listen to other speakers
Mm-hmm.
because you're all kind of both in the same space. But I've been on a few panels with Martin, and I absolutely love who he is and his insight. He
Yeah.
is a super awesome person.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely another pioneer in our industry. So, being a single mom, I guess, with 4 kids, what, 3 sons and a daughter?
I'm the opposite. I've got 3 girls and a boy,
3
and
girls and a
I
boy? Yeah.
could not understand why God gave me girls. Right? Like, I am not a girly girl. And although I do like makeup and I like to like fix myself up, I'd much rather go fishing um, or go catch lizards and snakes than I would go shopping or I don't even know what other girly stuff you do. Sit around and gossip like that. It's not me at all.
Yeah.
Um, but my first daughter, I was like, okay, I can do this. My second one, I'm like, I'm really not so sure what you're thinking here. Like, I'm not going to make good girls. Then I got a boy, and I was like, okay, this is good. This is right down my alley. I can totally do boy. And then I got another girl, and I'm like, okay, I do not understand what is going on. But as my life has unfolded and I see the impacts that I've made on other women, especially inside the industry, and I know that my daughters are watching me, it kind of all now makes sense, right? There's always a bigger plan, whether you believe in God or you believe in the universe or whatever word you want to use for that source energy. I think it's always bigger than what we can ever understand. And as I get older, I find a lot of peace in knowing that I may not understand and that that's okay right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I just continue to go down the path that's, laid out for me, then it's going to work out exactly how it's supposed to, not how I think it should, because control is an illusion. And for anybody that thinks that control is not an illusion, you probably have not been through enough in your life to realize that control is an illusion. But I just find a lot of peace in not knowing and knowing that it all works out. And most of the time I can look back on some of those really chaotic times and go, oh, well, that's why that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get it. I learned something. Cool.
Right.
Next.
Right.
Right.
What's up next? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Ed
Speak-
Milet, man,
Right.
he says things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've played that in my head a couple times in situations since RoofCon, since I heard that for the first time. I got a lot of really good short one-liners from that conference. And
Who said that?
Ed Milet said that.
Yeah, it's actually there's a right by my house in Utah. There's a graffiti on the side of a train car that says that
Oh yeah.
things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read it, several times a week for the last, I don't know, 5 years. And it is very true. And it's hard to remember that when
Mm-hmm.
it's bad things or what
Right.
we feel like is negative things or things that aren't going the way we think that they should go, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Inside of our self centered mindset of the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um, and that's when you can appreciate things not going the way you think they should. That's when I think you've really mastered the ability to let go of control and allow life to unfold, because it's usually better than what
Right.
you could have imagined.
Right. And sometimes you're not even so we're so focused as humans as, I want constant satisfaction. I want the gratitude of success. I want people to see me succeeding. We're so focused on that satisfaction. We're wired that way as human beings. Sometimes it's hard for us to understand that maybe something negative isn't necessarily part of the goal achievement process. Sometimes it's just something that lets you know that, number one, you're human, and number two, you can push through this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because if you're a believer in God, they always say that He never gives you more than you can handle, right? So sometimes it's more of
Without
just a
him.
right. Sometimes it's more of just a, hey, I can still do this. You know what I mean? I can make it through this. I'm strong enough to do this. So sometimes it's not even just a part of the process of achieving that goal. It's just to remind you that, like I said, number one, you're human. You're a human being. You make mistakes, and how you rebound and grow from that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add to that because I think I've had a really hard life, and now that's relative to what I think is hard, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I am fully aware that there are other people that lives have been much harder than mine. I mean, I grew up in a fairly privileged family. We lived on a golf course in high school, and my mother did very well. And so, but my pain was all self inflicted,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was based on my own negative self beliefs of things that I had grown up with in early childhood. And I think that a lot of the things that I went through, even though, yes, maybe they were of my own doing, I needed to go through those things in order to have grace and forgiveness for other people, um, and to be able to offer contribution from a very unjudgmental place. Like, I think that if you talked to people about me and who I am, that's probably the number one thing I think people would say is, one, I'm perseverant and relentless. But secondly, you can't offend me or make me judge you, right? Like, I don't care what you've done in your life. People screw up and they're
Mm-hmm.
human beings. And I can read energy and tell if somebody is authentically past that and moving on into a good space, or if they're saying something and they're not. And then I just distance myself. I don't judge because I don't know what their life situation is of why they would need to make those, types of decisions. But I know, what type of people I will surround myself with. And if I hadn't gone through as much ugly or, pain or whatever you want to call it, I don't think I'd have the same grace for other people.
Absolutely. No, I can totally
It's a great
agree
point.
to self-inflicted pain and learning things the hard way, which for me, I mean, I don't care if you tell me something 10 times, it won't be a good idea until I think it's a good idea. And, and
I'm not quite that stubborn,
I am,
but
for
I
sure.
was earlier
Yeah,
on in my life.
right,
Yeah,
right.
I
That's,
definitely knew what was best for
yeah,
me. Nobody else did.
right, exactly. I didn't care.
Yeah.
And then I would take the credit for it, even though you told me 10 times that I shouldn't have did that or I should do that. But yeah, but I can totally relate to being the person who I am today because of whether it be failures or, unforeseen situations that had happened to me growing up as a kid. And my childhood wasn't the greatest either. But I really believe it had molded me into the person that I am today, to have empathy for other people, to have a conscience. Now, I did go the other way and did and said exactly who I didn't want to be. I did turn out to be that person at one point in time throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
And what's crazy about that is it's actually been 12 years ago today, April 6th. um, 12 years ago, I had put myself into rehab, and it's actually my dad's birthday, and he got baptized today, and I got to witness that.
Awesome.
That was a little bit.
What an amazing day for you.
Yes, that was a little bit different. I never experienced anything like that. I've been to church probably twice in my life, and I was kind of conned into doing it. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But what my point is that I'm not a religious person, but I'm definitely spiritual.
As am I.
Yeah, but like all of those things that I had put myself through, the things that I had witnessed. I heard something the other day, and I think, and I hope I say this correctly, is that like life happens to you 10% of the time, 90% of it's how I respond to it. And that
I think
totally,
it's 10% is what happens to you, 90% is how you respond. Is that what you said? Yep,
yes,
yep, that's
yeah,
exactly right. Yeah, I've
yeah,
read that a few different times. Yeah.
yes, and that totally resonates with me, especially today. Did you lose your earbud?
Yeah, my
Yeah,
daughter's going to get it for me. I have two, thankfully. So
there you go.
I can still hear you in the other
Yeah,
earbud, but this one went flying. Okay,
cool. Yeah, but no,
you're
that's
good.
definitely a good topic. We could talk about this stuff all night long about,
Absolutely, man.
trying to be a better
Absolutely.
person today, hanging with the winners, those who, are trying to achieve the same goals or at least the same mindset as we have today. And just surround yourself around, at least I feel today, I want to surround myself around those that are performing or trying to perform at the level that I'm performing at today. Not that I'm the highest performer, but Chris pushes me and I push Chris. Vic pushes me and I push Vic and so on and so forth. And we're trying to, create a culture here, not just in our professional life, but also in our personal life. Like you said earlier, like your daughters are watching you right now. So what do you want them to see? You punching holes in the wall, or you taking care of business like you do?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I
So
mean?
I'm
To be a
not I'm
strong
not a
woman.
hole puncher, but I was a stark raving lunatic, right? Like I just start screaming, like, clean your room.
Right.
And I always would ask her, I was like, why do I have to get too crazy mom mode before you start listening? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can't you just listen? And now my kids are all older. My youngest is 10, and my oldest is almost 19. And so, you know, there's a different ability to reason with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I just got to a point where it's like, okay, do I need to fixate on the fact that my house is a mess because I have four little kids? Or should I fixate on creating great memories, clean up what I can, because it's going to be a mess again tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So running around like a crazy person screaming at my children to clean up when it's pretty much unrealistic to expect a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old to clean up after themselves, just became not worth it.
Yeah.
And when I just let go of silly little things like that, thinking that life had to be a certain way or fit inside a certain box, um, a lot of freedom opened up and a lot of possibility.
Right. Picking and
And,
choosing your battles.
yes, absolutely. Creating good memories. That's what matters. People don't remember a clean house. I mean, kids are not going to grow up and be
No.
like, oh, my mom's house was so clean, right? They're going to grow up and be like, no, my mom did this and we went and did these things and we did that. And that's what matters
Yeah.
Absolutely.
when you're
Absolutely.
in the big scheme of life.
So
Yeah.
speaking of which, how do you juggle, the career that you have today with all the traveling and being the owner and CEO and president of Roofing Utah and having 4 children? Like, how do you do that? I'm sure our viewers or listeners want to know.
I don't know, right? Like
Good
Just kind
answer.
of happens,
that,
man.
that is a super straightforward answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So my schedule with my kids, my little ones, is I have them every other week, and I do my best to schedule all of my travel arrangements only on the weeks that I don't have them.
Okay.
So, which that helps being home for the roofing company too. So the tour, like when we start our tour on the 25th, if you look at our dates, they're only every other week. And sometimes there's some time in between because somebody had a family vacation on the week that I was available. That would be it.
Yep. Got it.
But I really, when my kids are with me, I try to do the best to be home and present and, home at 5 o'clock and making dinner or Uber Eatsing dinner, depending on it, because they want sushi because my children are rotten. No, they grew up in Japan. My youngest two lived in Japan until they were 4.5 and 3.5 and 2.5. Sorry. and we ate a lot of sushi. So that's like their favorite thing to do. Um, and then on the other weeks, it's kind of free game. Like if I'm gone and I'm out, then I'm gone and I'm out. My older two are adults, both graduated. And, yes, they still need money and they still need mom things, but they don't necessarily need me there all the time.
Right.
I can understand that. I have a 27
Yeah.
year old, a 22-year old, and a 13-year-old. So they're at that age where it's like we don't have to be home all the time. We can travel because the middle one will babysit, the younger
The
one.
younger, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a cool place to be where they're kind of, self-contained and very low maintenance. So I guess, for lack of better words.
Well, and I kind of look at, there's a lot of people my age, and I'll be 42 this year, that are just starting to have kids or, have little kids. And I'm going, oh God, no. I love my children, but I am also really excited to have adult relationships with all of them and see them grow and become adults and, have some time back to myself because, being a parent is a lot more than people
I loved
tell
your
you
answer,
it is.
Jen. I loved your answer of the I don't know. I have 4 kids too. And that's a really good way to describe it. You just kind of do it, and to try to try to make this like intricate agenda of how everything's going to work every night, man, that shit don't work. You know what I mean? I have two 16-year-olds and I have a 5-year-old. I'm sorry, a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. And it is sometimes it's easily controlled and sometimes it's just absolute chaos. And I learned
you do
a
the
long
best
time
you
ago.
can.
Yeah, don't sweat the small
That's
stuff.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, we're real big on Nerf battles in my house. So like at any given time, if you just randomly show up at my house and I don't know you're coming, you're probably going to see Nerf darts everywhere because my kids just have all these Nerf guns and they love it, And
Dude, that is so awesome. Like someday when I get married, if I ever get married again or if I ever get into a relationship, like that is what I want. Like I want Nerf guns at the door. And if you're late, you're going to get shot, right? Or like in a really fun way.
right.
But I am all about memories and laughing and having fun and really trying to keep all of those life stresses out of the house. I think too often people bring the negativity home and then people don't want to be home. And I look at home as somewhere that people should feel safe, be themselves and want to be and, leave all of the crap that the world has piled on outside
Yep.
Yeah.
and, walk in and, have some freedom and some grace and some permission to just be. And so that's always been really big to me. I've got kids in sports. We play airsoft. My son is an airsoft guy and he's a really good shot. And he talked me into playing airsoft with him about, I don't know, 4 months ago. And that shit hurts. Okay. I am not going to lie. But to see his face, right, when we leave and he's so excited because I played with him and the guys there are like, dude, that's pretty cool. Your mom's here to play with you because he's usually the only kid, right? Most of them are, between 18 and 25 military guys that are, just having some fun. And we both leave pretty bruised, lots of little marks, and we laugh and we have a good time. We try to play every other week. And then we've got basketball and we've got, animals, and my kids would probably have every animal if I would allow them to, but thankfully we don't.
Yeah.
So it's just working it out.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
It
That's
is good stuff. Making memories is very important. We were talking about our childhoods, and it's like looking back, it's kind of like I had a couple. You know what I mean? And it's like that's one thing that we've tried to do for our kids is to have positive memories. And like you said about your home should almost be your sanctuary. When you come home, that's when the stress leaves.
Right.
And we bought a house about 1.5 years ago. And one of the reasons why we bought it was to improve the quality of our life. Okay, so we lived in probably one of the oldest homes on Main Street in Dover. And for, 10, 12 years, and multiple people had always asked us, like, why do you guys live there? it was easy. It was simple, and we were humble, and it was our home. It wasn't a house.
Yeah.
It was our
Right.
home. But then as the family grew, we have 3 grandchildren. And so we wanted a pool because they wanted a pool. We just couldn't do that on Main Street. You know, we were going to, but the contractor that
Yeah,
came over
right.
was like, dude, why are you going to do this here? So he basically talked us into buying a new home where we could put a pool in. And I'll admit, ever since we have moved in there, like something has changed for me. You know, where I come home, it's like, it's just nice to come home. The backyard's beautiful. We sit up on a hill, so we're kind of, you know, overlooking the neighbors, and we got these big ass pine trees. Pine trees are my favorite. Okay. So
Oh, I love pine trees,
Yeah.
except when they drop pine needles.
yes, in the pool, which really sucks. Okay, believe me. And I've only had the pool about 9 months, so I got to experience the pine needles in the pool, and I didn't even get to swim in the frickin' thing yet. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I spent not all winter long, but the end of fall and the beginning of winter cleaning pine needles and leaves out of my new pool that I
Yeah.
haven't got to swim in yet. So I did get the experience.
Don't forget your gutters.
Yes, gutters. Yes, for sure.
You got gutter guards though, man.
Yeah, we hooked that stuff up.
Yeah, man.
Okay, good. That's really smart.
Yeah, but they're big.
Why would I think anything different? Yeah.
Right. That's kind of what we do. Our
Yeah,
web
I
address.
totally get that. Yeah.
Our web address is 321gutterdone.com.
I like it.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that's a
smart,
whole
yeah.
story where that came about, but we can talk about that some other time. But yeah, 75, 50-foot pine trees. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So it has improved the quality of our life. And, you know, it's our peaceful place. Like even if I have to sit in the truck for a few minutes before I walk in the house, that's what I'll do. Because I don't want to wear that, you know, on my face, on my sleeve. Now, am I perfect at that? Unfortunately not. But we get our youngest grandchild 3 days a week, and I try to sneak home during the middle of the day and see her. I don't personally get her. Jana Mackenzie comes over. That's our middle child. She's 22. She has Skylar. So Skylar comes over Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And when I walk in the door, this little girl just lights up. Like, I don't think I've ever had anything love me so much. And honestly, and I hate to say this, and hopefully none of my other kids are listening, I don't think I've ever loved anything so much in my life either. I mean, this little girl in our home, like, right now I'm getting freaking goosebumps. Like this.
So I think I'm going to correct the way that you're saying that.
Okay. Yes.
Because I think that you've never allowed yourself to feel that kind of love, right? Because I think
Yeah.
when you're a parent and you're in the hustle and bustle of life and, you know, running around making sure, and you're younger, right?
Mhm.
So we're not as
Cool.
patient,
No.
and we're doing the best we can to provide a life at all. And our job is to raise adults. So we're
Mhm.
hard on them, and we don't want them to have this, you know, make the same mistakes we did, and all of these things. And then you have grandkids, and you don't have, you're way more patient.
Mm-hmm.
You get to return them, right? Like
Yes,
you're
yes,
not completely
right. Well,
responsible for
Yeah,
them.
I get to go back
You
to
get
work. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to return them. And it's not your job necessarily to teach them how to be an adult. You just get to love them. And so it's a different relationship.
Totally.
And I see that a lot when like, even in my own mother, like my mom and I have a wonderful relationship, but I have to remind her, hey, you're not here to be the mom. Just love them.
Yeah.
Have fun with them.
Yeah.
Let me be the bad guy, because I am very much looking forward to the fact that, you know, I'll probably be a grandma in 4 or 5 years, I would guess. You know, but my oldest has a promise ring, so she's gonna get married when she graduates from college, which will be in about 3 years, and I would guess I'll have kids within a couple years after that, which is completely crazy because I do not feel old enough to be a grandma.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, that completely freaks me out. But my mom was a grandma at my age. So the fact that I'm going to get like another 4 or 5 years, that, you know, says a lot. But I can't wait for that. Like, I can't wait to only have to love and not have to be the bad guy. I hate being the bad guy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
We
So I
call
think,
it
I
Disneyland.
just think it's different.
Yeah, we call it Disneyland when the grandkids come over. It's Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was so important to us as, you know, when we were raising our kids just doesn't seem that important with them. you know, like you were talking about the house being a mess or trying to correct them or making sure that they don't follow our footsteps. It's like it's just not that important. And to be honest with you, we did pretty good, I think, with our
Yeah.
kids. You know, Jacob, our oldest, you know, he's out on his own. He's doing his own thing with it. You know, he's tattooing and stuff like that. And honest to goodness, I think we did okay. I mean, was I perfect? I was 17 years old when I had him. Like, that is a whole 3 chapters in a book, if I ever wrote a book, on how badly I did, how poorly of a parent I was at age 17. I was a junior.
Well,
She was
how
a
could
senior.
you be though?
Right,
Like,
I
I
was a
mean,
baby.
really,
You're not
yeah.
even an adult
No,
at that
I
point
was a
yourself.
baby.
Yeah,
You know, and I
you're
just,
still a baby at 25. Like,
right.
let's be real, right?
Seriously.
Like, when you
Yeah.
look back at your life, I don't know. I don't know that I really feel like I started to grow up and understand life until my mid 30s.
Hmm. Yeah, for real. No, you're right.
I mean, yeah,
It may
from a
have
very
been for me
realistic standpoint.
35. I was probably 35. Women mature
Yep.
quicker than men. So I probably
Shit,
did.
I'm still immature, man.
I probably really didn't start to grow
That's
up.
okay,
till-
you know it. That
Yeah.
guys are allowed to be immature. You're supposed to be
Yeah,
fun.
Yeah.
I'm a big kid when it comes to it, man. I like to joke, I like to carry on, but I mean, I was right down the same boat, man. I remember I was supposed to move. I had just graduated high school, and I was supposed to move to Florida when I found out that my ex was pregnant, and I had my twins. So
I did. Moved to
I was
Florida.
young, man, and same thing, Ty. You know, I can write so many chapters in a book on how not to do it when you're that age,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it's like, you know, I don't think that I'd change anything, you know,
Right.
and that's where I come with the whole things don't happen to you, they happen for you. You know, I needed to
Yeah.
experience that
sure.
because now my younger kids, you know, my older kids are great. You know, they wouldn't be able to tell that I was a shithead when I was younger. I tell them all the time how much of a shithead I was when I was younger and why I make the decisions that I make these days. But I needed that to be able to understand how I need to do it the right way. You know,
Yeah,
and how
no,
much better
I
it is when you're ready.
100% agree.
You know,
Yeah,
when you're
absolutely.
actually mature and ready to have kids. You know, when my youngest was born, it's just a completely different feeling. You know, it's a completely different mindset, and yeah, I wouldn't change anything though. You know, I
No.
wouldn't change anything about it.
No, me
I
neither.
don't have any regrets, to be honest with you. I really don't. So, yeah. So, all right. So, tell us about this roofing reclaimed. I guess tour that you
Our
guys are
upcoming
on.
tour.
Yeah. So, what? Tell us about it.
So, you know, I never really saw myself as being somebody that was going to lead the industry or even speak to the industry or even impact the industry, right? Like that isn't what I thought or where I thought my life would go. I did always know that my purpose was much bigger than I understood. I have felt like that since I was a teenager, probably. But I never really thought I was worthy of it, and therefore I thought it was all in my head. Like it would not unfold the way that I felt like it was supposed to unfold from a very real standpoint, but then where my negative self beliefs would come in and be like, no, that's not going to happen. But it did. And one of the things I've realized is it's great to have events that are in, you know, I absolutely love going to RoofCon. I love going to Roofing Process Conference. IRE was amazing, but there's a lot of little roofing companies out there that can't do that, right? They can't either they can't afford it or they can't afford the time away or they don't quite understand how to make those things happen in their pricing and in their reality so that they can plan to do those things because they're invaluable. I mean, Ty, I think you would agree with that. We met at SRC standing outside,
Mm-hmm.
you know, talking to Dave and April. And I think that people underestimate what comes from attending events. So
Totally.
in talking, you know, John Cenac and I were chatting and we were like, well, maybe we should just go hit all the places nobody goes. You know, what if we threw something together and went and saw and gave these smaller contractors an opportunity to show up somewhere that's closer to them where they don't have to pay for plane tickets and they don't have to stay overnight. And that's kind of where it came from. And we decided to kind of focus it around my model of contractors staying in their lane in the insurance world, which is a contractor's job in my opinion. And I heard this once But is it broke? What's it going to take to fix it? And how much does it cost?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell contractors, if it doesn't fall inside of those three things, as a contractor, it's probably not your lane, right? Like whether or not somebody has code upgrade, not your lane. What the local codes are, absolutely your lane, right? Because that's what's it going to take to fix it. You need to know that information.
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not your homeowner has coverage to cover that is not your lane. That's, a public adjuster's lane, attorney's lane, your homeowner's lane, or their insurance company's lane. And so we decided to kind of make the whole tour around those principles. And like Matt Mulholland is going to talk about, mechanical damage and wear and tear versus storm damage and what does that look like, which obviously is it broke. John's going to talk about repairability and understanding, how to have discussions about when things are repairable and when things are not repairable, which is what's it going to take to fix it. And I'm going to come in and talk about general overhead. I did not realize when I started talking to contractors about building, a retail mindset or switching into a retail model or having a retail model, there's a lot of people that don't understand the difference between gross profit and net profit.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what a cost of goods sold is. They don't, there's a huge missing, because we had a lot of sales guys that knew they could do it better and started a business and still sell and sub out their work, but they don't understand the business side of it. And
right.
that gives all of us a bad name because they go out of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're stuck defending why we're not going to go out of business and why the roofing industry in general has integrity, or our homeowners shouldn't be worried about that. And I got to fix it now because I opened up a box that I didn't realize was even existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was my second stop in Chicago where I said something about, adding a 10% net profit. And I had a contractor go, well, why would I do 10%? My profit's 42%.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, well, that makes a huge amount of sense to me as
Right.
why we're going out of business. If we don't understand what overhead cost, I had a guy tell me last week his overhead cost was 7%. And I go, in what world?
Yeah.
There is no way.
Especially
I am sorry,
today.
but there is no way with fuel prices.
Yes.
I mean, you have to carry at least general liability. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you have a workers' comp exemption, but you have to at least carry general liability and auto, and then you've got fuel. And I go, do you have a cell phone? And and I'm going
Yeah.
through, do you have
Marketing.
email? Like I'm going through,
Yeah.
like all
Yeah.
of these things, and it was all things that he had never even realized were overhead.
Mm-hmm.
And how to understand and calculate that. So that's what I'm going to focus on is, okay,
Cool.
what is a realistic P&L look like for a
Yeah.
roofing company?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like where should you be budgeting, and how do you allocate for time for travel or training? Say you wanted to go to Top Rep, right? Top Rep is awesome. I've heard so many great people have awesome experiences, but then it comes up and you haven't planned for it and it's not built into your margins, so you don't
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that? How do you raise your prices enough to be able to go to those types of events or go to, a networking event like SRC or
Mhm.
RoofCon or whichever, somebody wants to, and
Right.
plan to hire, right? You got to
Yeah.
plan to hire. It's
Yeah.
not that simple. Like
No.
Right.
you got trucks to buy, you've got more insurance, unless you're 1099ing everybody. And I have a feeling that whole 1099 model is going to go away here pretty soon. There's a fairly decent lawsuit from what I've been told about in the industry going on with a pretty major company who has 1099, and I don't know for a fact, so I'm not going to speak on it, but
Yeah.
who has 1099 employees and is going to get in a lot of trouble. And it's
Mhm.
just going to continue to open up those doors so that it becomes, it will get to a place where you probably can't 1099 a sales guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
We haven't
you probably
1099 anyone since 2011. For at least the state of Pennsylvania, State Workers Insurance Fund, which is workers' comp,
Yep.
we got an audit. Like things totally changed. So we ended up getting an audit, and it was pretty devastating for us at that time. It was like, oh my God. And I had no idea that we weren't, if we were going to have 1099s, they had to have their own workers' comp, general liability, and all kinds of other things that we didn't know actually went into play. So we
See,
got,
we get audited every year.
yeah, we do
So
now
at least
too.
you do now too.
Oh yeah, we
okay.
do now too since 2011, and that's when we switched. And that was probably one of the biggest milestones. And I've talked about it before. When we put everybody on the books, I was so terrified. And then to try to talk them into it being a good idea that you should go on the books, because everybody was so used to getting paid cash basically and receiving a
Yep.
1099 at the end of the year. We just couldn't do it anymore, not where we wanted to go. You know, and getting back to that overhead topic that you were talking about, you know, I always call that the gray area that nobody ever thinks about. You know, the cost of goods and labor and material, that's one thing. But there's so much more that goes into it to operate a business. You know what I mean? You got the lights, you got the ink, you got the paper, you got the pens, you got the Comcast bill. There's so much that gets built into that, plus the labor burden. And let's talk about marketing. If
Well,
we,
like people don't even talk about labor burdens. They budget salaries in there, and then they don't even consider what that's going to cost them from the taxes that they have to pay on those individual employees, or general liability, or workers' comp, or auto insurance, or whatever.
right?
And nobody's teaching that. Like
No.
who? I mean, I'm
Nobody
not saying
taught me.
nobody. I know Randy Brothers does like a business boot camp, but he does it in Denver, right? And I've talked to him about it. Like, we need to, if we're going to transform the industry and create a reputable industry, we have to get
Love it.
education out. Like,
Yeah,
I
man.
challenged,
Yes.
I've challenged every major roofing association, and including the NRCA, you know, the IRE. You guys need to offer more basic education and not assume, because the barrier of entry is low, we can't assume that the people that are coming in have that knowledge. And if we want the industry to have that level of professionalism and create owners that get it, we have to offer that somewhere. And nobody's doing that. And I'm not great, right? I'm not a CPA.
Right.
I'm going to miss stuff, but I know enough that I can at least help guide some of those conversations of things that people don't think about.
Yeah.
And allow them to budget for things like having a good bookkeeper that can, you know, make sure that their QuickBooks is up and correct, and,
Right.
you know, a good tax planner that's talking to them, you know, about, you know, research and development tax credits, or the Augusta rule, which is one of my favorite tax credits that nobody ever knows about. Have you guys ever heard of the Augusta rule?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So the Augusta rule, essentially, and again, I'm not a CPA, but it started with the Masters played at Augusta in Georgia.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it started there, where you could rent your home out, because people could rent their home out for a certain period of time, 2 weeks of the year, and make money on their home. And so people would rent their home to their business and fly people in and allow them to be at the Masters. But then there was no way to take a deduction on that. So if you host an event in your home, say like you do a Christmas party at your home, or a manager's retreat, or something like that, the Augusta rule allows you to rent your home for 2 weeks a month at what you would pay for a similar type of event in your area. Okay, so it can be for 2 weeks, and so you can do a 2-week write-off of that. And you'd have to talk to a CPA to get the exact details behind it, but that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man.
Which
I
is
never heard of that.
a deduction that nobody knows about, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and there, like you said, there's so much about it, like the difference between an LLC or an S corp, or are they paying themselves, and how are they paying themselves? Are they giving themselves?
No, they take their salaries out of net profit. Like,
Right.
there is no salary allocated or budgeted in, so
Right.
there's no net profit. They just draw it,
Right.
and then
Right.
they can't grow, right?
Right.
Like, how do you grow with nothing to grow on?
Yeah. Right. And you have
Oh.
to show a profit. I mean, you can't continuously show a loss each year as well, or else the IRS is going to be like, dude, how are you still in business?
Right.
And
What
then
do you
end
do?
up getting-
Spend your money every December?
Right. Yeah. Seriously. Seriously. I'll be honest with you, though. I have never had my accountant say, dude, you got to spend money. You know what I mean? I've heard people say, well, I've had my accountant call me towards the end of the year and tell me that I got to spend X, Y, Z. Unfortunately, I've never gotten that call, because we've constantly rolled the money right back into the business. Like you said earlier, we just bought 7 new trucks, got them all lettered. I mean, that shit costs money.
Yeah.
You know,
Money.
especially,
Yeah.
right. Like, especially nowadays, to get a vehicle wrapped, I mean, I think it used to cost me $1,500, and I'm talking like a good wrap on it. I think we're
Right.
spending like $3,200 to $3,500 to get our vans wrapped right now.
Yeah.
It's totally
Yeah, see, that's
out of control,
crazy.
and
And
that's why we had to increase our overhead. You know, the
have to
margin that we
yeah.
put in there, we recently increased it, I think, 8%. Like we had to adjust it. Like the past 24 months to whatever 30 months has just been one ridiculous roller coaster ride of trying to keep up with the material price increases, the labor increase, and then just everything else that we do to conduct business, from fuel to, I mean, everything has just gone
Yeah,
up. And if you haven't
there's no
kept
way
up with
to
it,
stay in business.
no, and I think at the end of the year, like we may end up seeing not even just roofing contractors, but whatever businesses haven't been solid. You know, at some point in time, I think we're going to start seeing restaurants going out of business, or you know, whatever industry that these companies might be in. And that's something I think about. We went through the recession. We were fortunate enough to get through that. So that mindset has never left me, of trying
Right.
to figure out how to do a lot with little and keep the overhead down. You know, and my theory is that this year is the year of the mirage. Okay, so this would be the year, and I could be 24 months ahead of schedule here, but that's typically my MO, that I'm a little more paranoid, or my foresight is a little further out, or not as far out as most people think it is, or whatever. But I'm thinking this year, if you have any type of debt or bad debt, this is the year to get it paid down. It's going to be a great year. But I think a lot of people are going to try to think it. They're going to think it's that they can keep it scale. You know, it's scalable. Okay, so they're going to get fooled by how well this year is going to be. But I think 2023 and 2024 are going to be a little bit different. So if you're not careful and get that bad debt paid down, yes, try to grow. Okay, but somehow, some way, keep that overhead down. And if you have any bad debt, get it paid off. That's just my suggestion. I got that feeling like this year's the mirage, where we'll see more
That's
roofing
interesting.
contractors pop up, and then you'll see other roofing contractors blow up.
I do agree with you. I think that I personally think we're going to major recession next year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that 2024?
2023.
Okay.
Next year.
Next year.
Okay, so I think it will happen between 2023 and 2024 for a couple different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One, we really like to have shit happen in election years.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that really being pushed more towards the end of 2023 and 2024, so that it creates chaos from an election standpoint. Why we have a need to do that as a country is beyond me, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, I think it's going to take some time before people catch on, right? Like if you look at what the inflation rate is, it is higher than it was in 1982. So we thought 2007 was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And our inflation is more than that. And you don't really see it until gas, yes, but you start looking at convenience items, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I went and bought dishwasher detergent packets, okay? And I buy Cascade Complete. So I've got like all like the little stars and like then I don't have to buy like the squeeze jet stuff because I never remember to refill that stuff, whatever. And a year ago, I was paying $7.96, I think, for a tub.
Mm-hmm.
I bought it this last week and it was $17
Wow.
for one tub.
So what
Okay.
is that? That's over 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 110%
Well,
more.
inflation always happens on items of convenience first, right?
Mhm.
Because you look at it, I'm like, am I going to wash dishes? No, I am not going to start washing dishes. I get that it cost me $10 extra to buy these, and that's frustrating, but I'm still going to buy them,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I don't have time in my world to spend or washing dishes all the time. I'd much rather run my dishwasher. But it starts there. And if that is any indication of what it's going to look like in a year from now,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's a scary place.
It really
It's a
is.
very, very
Yeah,
scary
because there's still a
place.
lot of stuff that needs to catch up. You know, the inflation is not happening as far as the national pay rates and all that kind of stuff. That's not really
Well,
caught up.
yeah, everything will crash. Like, and I hate saying that,
I know.
and I hate the fact that I think that that's our true reality. But I do. I think we're going to crash, and the housing market is going to crash, and we're going to see a lot of foreclosures again, and we're going to see a lot of enterprises this time that are set up knowing, and they're going to go in and they're going to swoop up all these houses, and they're going to monopolize, which will make the United States more of a renter's market than it will be a home buying market. And that part of our life will look more like it does in England, right? Very few
Hmm.
people own homes in Europe. Most of them rent, and the corporations or the other people own their homes. And I don't know. I can see it going in that direction. Somebody posted something today on Facebook that said, God, who was it? Might have been Diego. No, I don't know who it was. But anyways, it was about how owning a home or renting a home is actually it's good to rent,
Hmm.
right? Because you have freedom and you can just pick up and move, and it's not a negative thing to rent. The amount of tax deductions that people get from owning a home tend to value less more than the risks that go in and the responsibilities that go into owning a home. So it'll be interesting to see what
It
happens out
will
of all
be
this.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It could go either way. I mean, there's, what's different about now than, 20 or 2008 is that, the money that the banks were loaning, is better money than it was. It was the banks that were in trouble.
True.
So
True.
that's one thing that we definitely have going for us. And the other thing is too, because we do a lot of work for national builders, so I'm picking their brains on like a weekly basis. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking them all kinds of questions, like, well, what's different now than then, or what do you see is going to happen? And the senses that I'm gathering is like we have a good 3 to 5 years, and why that is because there's not enough homes. There just isn't enough homes. Now they're building them fast to accommodate like 200 million people plus, which was fine back in 2008. But the problem is
Yeah.
there's 300 million plus people in the country today.
Yeah, you just locked everyone up inside houses for 2 years.
Yeah.
There's going to be
Yeah.
a baby boom.
Right. So, and
that
the
people don't think
millennials
about.
Oh,
is
yeah.
the largest. The millennials are the ones buying the homes right now. It's the largest generation we have ever seen, larger than the
And
baby
that's why
boomers.
financing works so good with
Right.
millennials,
Yes.
because
Yep.
millennials are budget people, right?
Right.
And that's why I tell roofers, I'm like, you guys are not offering finance. You are missing the boat, because even though they have the money,
Mm-hmm.
most millennials have money in their savings accounts, right? Like
Right.
they've been taught that they'd
Got
rather
money in your
pay
savings?
interest and keep money in their
Nothing.
savings account.
What's that? I'm sorry. I was picking on Chris
No,
for a
you're
minute.
okay. We're picking on Chris because he's a millennial and we
Yes.
are not,
Right.
and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I personally love millennials. Like they're my
Mhm.
favorite
I
people
love
to
millennials
employ.
too.
Me too.
I can't imagine why. Yeah, no. They're misunderstood, okay, and they're made wrong. And if you just understand them, there's a lot of power
Mm.
in the millennial culture, and their drive is so much different than what us Gen Xers are driven by.
Mhm.
It's refreshing. And it really grounds an organization when you have a lot of millennials, because they're driven by contribution and purpose. And it adds balance. But business owners think, or a lot of business owners, I shouldn't, say business owners in general, but a lot of business owners don't take the time to understand that, and it just becomes foreign
Mhm.
because they can't dangle a carrot of money in front of them and make them work.
Right.
And so they don't. There's all this turnover, and I can't keep people employed. Well, if you can't keep people employed and they're millennials, it's your culture.
Yeah.
Like it isn't them. It's your business culture, because and that's a whole nother topic that we could probably spend another hour
Most
on,
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
as far as nurturing a great culture that has the millennials. But business owners that figure that out, even Gen Xers or boomers,
Mm-hmm.
they're happier.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like giving back. And obviously you have figured that out, Ty, because I saw that in your commercial at the beginning where your little jingle was playing, right?
Yeah.
That you guys contribute and
Mhm.
give back. And that's one of the reasons I'm sure that you're successful in your community,
Mhm.
because you attract millennials, you retain millennials, and you give back and everybody feels good, and there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah.
And we do love giving back. And that's one thing I like about you. And this is a great segue. Okay. So tell us about, okay, so you've done two things that I've noticed so far. One was your proudest moment. Okay. Was giving back to a vet. But let's talk about the autism. April
Yes.
is Autism Month. Do you mind if we play a video of you real
No.
quick? Vic?
So
do you
that
mind?
was last April, but we're running it again this April. But
That's
yes,
fine.
absolutely.
Cool.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Cool. Uh-oh.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Is Vic not quite ready?
No,
I
kinda
don't think that our studio software is finicky sometimes, and I think it's being one
Well,
of those times.
and so
Okay.
I'll just kind of fill in the space.
Yes.
It was really, really important to me, especially shortly after seeing how much the community rallied behind me as an owner and supported me. And, they're constantly tagging me in posts on Facebook, not anymore because I got hacked and I had to start a whole new profile. And that's a whole nother story. But they were. And I feel like as a small business owner, like it's the least you can do to give back to the community that supports you, because it is a very small group of people. And we did April last year, we did autism awareness, and we gave back 5% of our sales. And I had no business, I will be super honest with you, I had no business giving back 5% of my sales. Okay. I mean, we had $150,000 loss in 2020, but it was important to me, and it drove our culture to be out there and to get as much as we could to give back. And I mean, we took a check. I want to say it was like a little over $8,500 last May into the Autism Council of Utah. They had no idea, and we didn't know anything about them either. It was just the organization that we picked, and they fell to literally the lady fell to her knees crying because they were completely out of money. They were all volunteers. There was nobody in the entire organization that was a paid employee. All parents that had autistic children that were doing their best to educate. And when you do things like that and your employees, because I allow them to deliver checks and to do all of that stuff, I don't need to do it. But when they come in and sit in your office and cry because of how much that impacted a group of people, like it's a game changer.
People never forget that, man.
No.
People never forget that.
No.
Yeah, for
No, I
sure.
100% agree with that.
No, we love that. That I had no idea that that it was $8,500 and that it went down the way that it went down. Isn't that crazy? Like, and they probably thought, man, what are we going to do? And then here comes Miss Jen Silver rolling up in there with an $8,500 check, and like
Things happen for reasons, man.
Yeah, man, good stuff.
I just
gave me
had my
goosebumps.
office manager send it. Right.
Right.
We didn't do anything. We just said, hey, just wanted to thank you for what you guys are doing. We ran a promotion this month. Here's our 5%.
Awesome.
And
kudos.
Yeah, that's really
and
cool.
I don't know that I ever even connected with them. I know they tried and they wanted to publicly thank me, and I just was like, no, it's okay. Yeah. Like, I appreciate that, but we're going to do it again next year.
Tenfold.
And we'll probably continue to do it. My goal is to give 2 roofs away, one in May to a teacher, and then one in November to a veteran. So awesome. I don't know that we'll get this May because it's going to be a kind of crazy year, but by next year, that's our goal, is to give 2 roofs away a year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We try to do as much as we can. Each year it's gotten a little bit stronger. We fed, I think, around 600 people the night before Thanksgiving this year. Last year was about 300 or 400 people because we ran out of food, so we beefed it up a little bit last year. We put a big roof on for a company, Crispus Attic out of Lancaster, PA. Chris went up there and they had a leak, but there was no Band-Aid big enough, so we decided that we were just going to put a new roof on for them, and then we did a huge food drive. But when you were talking about that story where, you were like, man, you showed a loss that year, I'm trying to think, it was, 2 years ago, when the pandemic broke out. What did we do for Harvest Transitional Living?
Dude, what was that? You know, it's a really good thing when you have so many give back moments that you have trouble remembering some of the give back moments.
Yeah.
We did the gazebos for Harvest
No.
Transitional Living.
Yeah, something happened where she didn't want us to. The state of Pennsylvania was closed down. I mean, we were closed down right when the pandemic hit, and like there was nothing going on except some retail. And I think even then people were a little skeptical, by calling
Yeah, you guys
us.
had it much harder that side of the world because I have friends that were in Maryland in that area and they
Yes.
were shut down and we were essential. Like we
Right.
never
Yeah.
shut down completely.
Yeah,
dude, our
fortunately,
governor had
we
us
became
believing that we were gonna
essential.
die.
We had to jump through a bunch of hoops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did some kind of fundraiser for this this housing for like
Can't read
displaced
it.
kids and stuff like that. So whatever it was, she didn't want us to give her the money. Like we raised the money. State of Pennsylvania closed down, and I'll be honest with you, it was really
Project. We care about your
like,
family.
Oh, did you find
your
it, Vic?
Oh, I was like, that sounds like my voice.
That was you. Okay, you're getting there. No stress, brother. None at all. Okay, we're not paid to do
that
this
was
shit.
awesome.
Right. But we did it anyhow. I just knew it was the right thing to do, even though how terrifying it was. I mean, dude, we used to talk. Chris and I would talk on a daily, like all day, every day about like, should we close down? Should we close down? Should we close down? Shouldn't we close down? But we didn't close down, even though we were probably supposed to.
Yeah.
Like we didn't. And
It
we
was serious, man. It was serious times. Like our
was
conversations
scary. Yes.
weren't even really necessarily business driven, man. It was we have guys that want to work, but at this point in time, like I said, our governor had us all thinking that we were going to die.
Yeah.
If we went outside, if we had contact with people, we were
Roofing
gonna
Utah
die.
and founder.
And so, we're having more or less conversations, do we need to step in and save our people from themselves? How are we going to sleep at night if someone goes out to put a roof on somewhere, catches COVID, and one of their kids die?
Yeah.
Like how are we going to live with ourselves? But then again, if we don't go out and do this, our at that point in time, our business model was so driven around new construction. The other states that we're in, they're not closed down. So if we don't show
Maryland,
up,
Delaware, Virginia.
someone is.
Yeah, it's not going to
And
matter.
and
I get that.
So if we don't send them out and take that risk, is there even going to be anything to come back to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like really wishy-washy. We're damned if we do, damned if we don't almost, and we had a big meeting, and I remember this meeting, man. We had a big meeting with our guys, and we're like, look, if anyone doesn't want to do this, we're not going to hold it against you. We're gonna stay running. Anyone that wants to show up, we have remote, at that point in time, we had just, dabbled into the whole remoteness. So guys didn't even have to report to the office.
Yeah.
They had their stuff on their tablets. They just went about their day, did their stuff, kept the PPE. We were only allowed to have so many people on each job site. And there was a lot of restrictions and stuff, but we're like, look, if you guys want to do this, do it. If you don't, it is okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
we were
this is what
putting
we're
one
gonna do.
person per vehicle too.
Yeah.
We didn't know what to do, man. No cross contaminating tools. If you're on the same job site, do not borrow his drill.
Do not touch each other.
Right. If the siding guys were on there, we couldn't do a repair on the roof because you were only allowed to have 3 people on the exterior and 3 people on the interior of the home.
It was crazy.
So there was a lot going on, but that's mainstream media for you.
Yeah, I think we made the
Right?
right choice. I really do. I'll be honest with you. We grew 25% during that time. Even with us being closed the entire first quarter of 2020, we grew 25%.
Well, I started a business in December 2019.
There you
Come
go.
on, that was
Right?
like the best time ever.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
Says no one in the country. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm just grateful that we were essential, right? Because if we would not have been an essential business, there would have been no way Roofing Utah would have made it. And
Yeah.
I never had intentions of being a business owner. I didn't see myself that way. So I'm just grateful for the way it all kind of happened for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Since we will go back with that. It happened for me the way it was supposed to.
Absolutely. So Jen, I want to touch on something here real quick. We spoke about this a little bit before the show. Can you tell me the airplane story? Tell me the airplane story and the viewers, because this is a powerful
Well, I think we
story.
have to get a little bit of background in there,
Yes.
okay, before I can tell you the airplane story. So my dad was Catholic and my mom was Southern Baptist. Okay, when we look at things from a religious standpoint, and obviously those two are very, very different. And we didn't go to church a lot growing up. We talked about God, we talked about Jesus, we talked about those things, but it was never this is what you believe, this. I personally got baptized and confirmed Episcopalian when I was in middle school because I found myself wanting more information. But as I grew up, I knew that I believed in God, but I didn't really understand what that meant. Okay. And there's been a few times in my life where God's or the universe, and I truly believe those words are completely interchangeable. I think it's hard for some people to say the word God because of all of the religious connotation that goes along with that and like this self-righteous morality. But I don't think that that is what that entity is. I think that is the human side of things that has gone in and created that because, frankly, we need to be right. I mean, that's why there's so many different religions because we had to be right. And if that one wasn't right, we had to create something else so that we could be right. And I don't look at that being as somebody that thinks there's only one right way. I look at that being as something that says, okay, yeah, human beings suck. They all think they need to be right, and I'm just going to give them as many avenues to me as possible, so long that they're doing their best to be good people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's pretty much where I look at religion. Well, inside of that, I've had a lot of really interesting things happen during the course of my life. So my son, when he was about 19 or 20 months, he used to pray every single night that God turn him into a wolf. And it would be like, God, me, wolf, right? And it kind of evolved, and he'd run around the house and he'd howl. And you know how kids' canines come in, they're like super sharp.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be like, Mommy, look at my teeth. God's listening. I'm going to be a wolf. And I'm like, oh God, like if this is literally what he thinks
Mm-hmm.
is going to happen, like I don't want him to lose all faith because God does not turn him into a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'd pray, I'd be like, show him something else that you exist. Don't let his entire faith for the rest of his life be based on whether or not you turn him into a wolf. Because let's be realistic, God's not turning my kid into a wolf. Right.
Right.
We all know that.
Right.
So my son's got these really cute ears and they're kind of pointy. And so he would, come in and he'd show me his ears and he'd run around and he'd howl. And I have this like video of him like, werewolves at night, werewolves. And he's just like strumming the guitar and he's about 4. Well, about 2.5, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had his sister at that point, and his heart was beating so fast that I couldn't even count. Okay. And I lived in Japan and I picked him up and I put his sister in the car. I put him in the car and I drove to the emergency room because that was much easier than calling an ambulance off base in Japan. And we get there and his heart rate registers on the pulse oximeter at 286.
Wow.
Okay. That's unbelievable. They're like, oh, there's no way. And I go, okay. So they go get another machine, 284, another machine, 286. And they're going, this isn't possible. I go, I'm sorry, but you don't have this many broke machines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you not feel his heart? Oh, well, it has to be because he has a fever of 99. He has a fever because his heart is beating so fast.
Right.
His body is hot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he did not have a fever going into this. And anyway, I spent like the next 2.5 years arguing with military doctors because he passed out a couple times. We had a few other things that happened because of it. And I almost got arrested for arguing with the Air Force officer because you're not allowed to argue with, officers. But I'm a mom and, I'm a Leo, which means I'm a lion. And I am going to protect my freaking family like nobody's business. And my ex-husband had to call me and be like, Jen, you got to chill out. Like, you're going to get me kicked out of the military. You can't do this. You can't fight with them like this. And so we got to Utah, and within the first couple of days of being in Utah, when he would pass out, his cry would change. He'd get hurt, and then his cry would change. And my ex-husband and I were like loaded up with groceries all up our arms. Like no parent's ever done that, right? You got to get as many bags as you can so you don't make multiple trips, right?
Yep.
And my son was being a turd, and my ex-husband tried to herd him onto the sidewalk and used his foot, and he turned, and it kind of hit him in the tailbone, and just like most 4-year-old little boys that aren't listening. And, my husband's like, ugh. I'm like, it's all right. He's fine. He'll be good. And he starts crying. Well, his cry changed. And I went, holy shit, he's going to pass out. And I'm ripping bags off of my arms. And he
Mm-hmm.
goes face first into a railroad tie.
Oh my God.
Okay. And I rush over and I pick him up. And obviously, like, he's bloody, busted his nose, and he's aspirating blood. I look like I'd murdered somebody between the bag cuts on my arms and him spitting blood all over me. And we rushed him to the emergency room. And the doctor's like, and again, my son, is my son, and he's got wolves stuffed animals, and that's just him, and whatever. And we get in there, and the doctor's kind of asking him about it, and I tell her a little bit about the story, and she laughs, and she goes, well, let's go back to his heart. Has anybody ever done an EKG? And I go, we've done several. I go, and they've done echocardiograms, and there's been nothing. And she goes, well, I'd really like to run one. I go, you do whatever you need to do. Whatever. She comes back in after the EKG, and she goes, well, your son has a heart condition. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, but it's not a terminal heart condition. She goes, it's something that's fixable. And I said, okay. And she goes, it's called Wolff Parkinson's White.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Get out of here.
The universe made him a
And
wolf.
I just literally started crying, right?
Yeah.
And my son is like bouncing up and down on the hospital
I
bed.
bet he is.
And he's like, Mommy, God turned me into a wolf. I'm a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And, the doctor's like, and I'm telling her the whole story of everything that's transpired over the last few years. And it is the only disorder or condition or anything that I could find medically that has the word wolf in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Wolf like somebody's last name. So it's WOLFF.
Mm-hmm.
But he was born with it, and it never ever showed its face until after he'd been praying for God turned him into a wolf, God turned me into a wolf, God turned me into a wolf. And I don't know that you'll ever be able to convince my son that God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
on.
the universe doesn't do what you call for it to do, right?
Yes.
Because and my
What are the
fears
chances in that, man? That's crazy.
Oh no, there's no chances. Like
Right.
that's not an accident.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I don't believe in coincidence. Like in all reality, I don't. I firmly believe that things happen exactly the way they're supposed to, exactly how they're supposed to. And I needed that for my own reassurance of faith as much as he did.
Mm-hmm.
But I literally looked at God and was like, could you not just made him hairy? Like, is there not a better solution than a heart condition? Right?
Seriously.
Like, thank you for not making it terminal, but come on now.
Right.
Right.
And so, I think that reaffirmed that I knew God existed, but I still didn't believe that God talked to me.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2018, when I got hired at the company I had that went out of business, I had my DISC profile read. And this guy had been in the industry for a really long time. And he goes, so Jen, you're psychic, right? And I laughed. And I was like, no, that's so weird. I'm not psychic. And he goes, well, psychic has a negative connotation, right? You think of like gypsies sitting over there, like doing all of this, like scamming to tell you your future. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that's not what I mean. He goes, but you get feelings and intuition around things, and you're almost always right. And he goes, you probably dismiss it more than you should. And he goes, but you really are almost always right. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Everybody gets feelings about stuff like, oh, don't go that way, go this way, don't do this, do that, or whatever. But it had never really played out enough for me to get that maybe I was a little bit different in that respect, or if there is a difference, I don't know. Anyways, so then in February of 2020, I was at home and my kids got out of school at 1:00 and they would walk to my townhouse, and my ex-fiance and I were renting a house in Layton, and my kids would walk there, and my ex would come over on the weekends because he lived in Riverton. We had 7 kids collectively, so we needed to see if it was going to work for us to move in together, right? So my kids would walk to my townhouse and I'd go over and pick them up. Well, 1:00 they walk over. About 1:30 I get this go pick up your kids. And I'm like, no. Have you looked at my calendar? And I think I was dealing with an attorney general issue where American Family had turned us in for something that we did not do, but they said that we did. And so I had like 13 claims that they were saying we committed fraud on. And I had proof on every single one, but I was like putting it all neatly together in a package because I didn't want to hire an attorney to do it all. And I'm like, have you looked at my calendar? I can't. This voice, go get your kids. I'm like, nope, go get your kids. Nope, go get your kids. I am not going to go get my kids. When are you going to stop telling me to go get my kids? Go get your kids. And finally at 2:30, I like slammed my hands down on my desk because I was so angry that I'd gotten nothing done. Literally nothing done in that entire hour, but argued with my voice in my head. And I looked at my ex, I go, I gotta go get the kids. And he's like, okay, whatever, go. I go into my neighborhood. My kids are playing outside, and I had a friend that was renting the townhouse that would let them come in and out, and was watching them, and they would check in. And I was like, come on, we're gonna go back. And they were so excited, and I'm lecturing them the whole way home. Like, we go to pull out of the neighborhood, it's 2:57. I go, okay, I'm thinking it's probably about a 12-minute drive home. I'll have about an hour and 45 minutes before I have to start dinner. What can I get done in that hour and 45 minutes to maximize my day? Kids, leave me alone. Don't talk to me. If you don't talk to me, then I'll make you dessert. But if you talk to me and you fight, I'm like literally setting myself up. I get home. I sit down at my computer. About 3:15, my phone rings, and it's my neighbor. And she never calls me. And I answer, and I'm like, hey. And she's like hysterical. And I go, what's up? She goes, where are your kids? And I go, they're with me. She goes, no, Jen, I just saw them in the neighborhood. Where are they? I go, no, really, I picked them up. Like, they're with me. Mm-hmm. And she goes, you need to turn on the TV. A plane just crashed into your house.
Oh, my God. It's crazy.
And I'm like, wait, what?
Right.
And I'm in so much shock that I can't even understand what she's saying. And we turned on the TV, and sure as shit, there's our townhouse. And the plane had technically went down right behind ours, in between our townhouse and the one across the street. And the wing hit the one across the street and flew off towards the area where my kids were playing. And it exploded and scorched the whole side of our building.
Wow.
So do I know that my kids would have been injured? No.
Yeah.
Would they have been emotionally traumatized for the rest of their life? Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think about that, like, I wasn't an easy convincing. Like, that voice had to keep going. And what if it would have given up? And what if I wouldn't have listened? What would have happened? And now I listen. I listen to the voice in my head. I don't always get it. I don't always agree, but I know the difference. And my negative voice, her name's Karen. Karen's a bitch, and I tell her all the time that to shut up.
That's a great name.
Well, she acts like what we would call a Karen.
Right.
I have an aunt named Karen, and I love her, right? But the whole connotation of what Karen is, it's kind of like, bye, Felicia, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Her name is Karen, and so I know the difference between Karen and, God or the universe, whatever you want to call it. And I choose to listen to one, and I choose to dismiss the other. And since that time, and getting that I do have value and I do have worth, and that is the direction that my life is going. I've had, numerous other things that have gone on where it's like, don't go this way, go that way, do this, do that, go speak. Yes, say yes to John Dye. I'm like, why the hell am I saying yes to a supplementing tour? I'm teaching people not to supplement. Well, nope, you're going to say yes. I don't want it. Nope, you're going to say yes, right? And so I just do the things that I feel like I'm instructed to do. And life is hard, but it's fulfilling, and the path continues to open up with ease. Evil finds good, and the more good you do, the more evil finds. And so there's been a lot of challenges, but it's not been hard, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. No, I love
So
it.
there's the plane crash story for you.
Wow. I would have never. I mean, Chris said something to me about it, and I'm like, I don't know.
I was like, is that her? Like, I remember seeing, and the messed up thing is, I don't even think that I've seen the whole intro. You know how Diego posts, he'll post like little snippets,
Little clip of it.
You know,
yeah.
make sure you guys stay tuned when this launches. And I think I
Yeah.
seen someone
He
say
did. He
something
left it
about a
as a
snippet, and I
cliffhanger.
was like, what the hell is this? And I thought it was you, but I didn't want to bring anything up on air in case it wasn't you, and you'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. But that's such an
heaven
amazing
forbid,
story.
Yeah,
Man.
it was you know, and I've wanted, people don't always know what to ask, right? Like when it comes to interviews. And when I was talking to Diego, because we were actually at D2DCon in Salt Lake, and he's like, so I'm going to ask you about this and how you got into roofing. And I'm like, can you not ask me that? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I go, everybody asks me that.
Yeah.
Like, and I appreciate that. And I go, and I'm grateful, but there's so much more that people don't ask me about that I think would have more impact. And because I know Diego and I know Hunter and I know that they are faith-based and people expect that from them, I thought that that would be a good time to start to talk about some of those other things that go on in my life and why I have like self-funded and blindly been out in the industry doing all of these things with absolutely no idea of where it was going to go or how things were going to go down or how it was going to be perceived. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell another set of viewers, because I think it's those stories matter more than I worked the front desk at SRS.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We 100% agree with that. Our show's a little bit different. This is kind of like what it has evolved into is more of like, who are you? You know, I don't give a shit about claims. I don't give a shit about like what happened? Who are you? You know, and those stories. It works most of the time, you know, where it turns into a good story and a good episode. I mean, maybe there was a couple times where it was like, oh man, maybe we should have did a little more research, but I'm really feeling like the way that this is going, and really we're truly interested in, you know, because we watch you. I mean, all eyes are on you, whether you know it or not. And
I know it.
You know what I mean? And but your true authenticity. And we talked, you know, on a personal level, you know, I think 2, maybe 3 times. And it was like, this is a cool chick. She's really cool. She's genuine. And I liked, you know, just your thinking behind things. It's not the same, but it is. You know what I mean? It's the truth. You're a truth teller is what you are. You're a truth teller.
You know why I don't lie? Because I absolutely hate the feeling of fear of not knowing what you have said to somebody or what you haven't said to somebody, right? And living in that place of keeping track, so to speak. Like, I am probably almost too honest in a lot of ways. And people, like, I did an interview, when I did the interview for the Roofing Contractor magazine, I don't remember any of it. Okay. I had COVID and they were on a really tight schedule, and I felt good enough to do the interview, but I could not for the life of me. And it was 2 hours long. I couldn't for the life of me. I had no idea what we talked about. And people would be like, well, are you afraid? And I was like, I'm not afraid. Fear is not a word I feel right now. And they're like, well, what if you said something? I go, everything I said was the truth, because it's always the truth. What part of the truth they asked me about, I don't know, but I am completely okay with accepting anything that goes along with the truth, because I think that people need to hear the truth. They need the ugly parts. They need to know, you know, the deep down things that people push through to get to where they are, and not just the pretty story or this is that or this is that. I said, so I have no fear around what I said. I just have no idea.
Right?
Like,
that's crazy.
Where it's going.
Right?
What the article is going to say at all. But that's okay, right?
Yep.
Like, you have to let go of control. That was a good lesson for me.
That should make it even more exciting for you when it comes out.
Yeah, you're going to get to read it for the first time, too.
Well, did Did you guys read it? So when it
I
came out
didn't.
in January, so I was on the cover of the Roofing
Yeah,
Contractor
I saw
magazine in
that.
January,
Yeah.
and I had emailed him and emailed him and emailed him, like trying to get him to, like, hey, can I preview it? Can I
Yeah. Right.
can I just like approve it? Like
Mhm.
anything, nothing back. And then I got it. It was sent to me like January 4th. I'm like, okay, now I can finally read it. But I think he did a really good job just capturing me for who I was, and the fact that I have had to push through quite a bit of different things personally. Maybe not so much in the industry then. I think I've had to push through a lot more as of late,
Mhm.
as far as the industry goes, and people's perception. But prior to that, no, not really. But I guess that's the measure of how
Yeah.
much good you're doing, is
Yeah.
how much
Just keep
adversarial things
just
come
keep
to
doing
play.
what you're doing.
Yeah,
You're
keep
doing
being
a great
authentic,
job.
man.
You're doing a great job. You believe in what you're doing, and really, that's all that matters.
It is. You're right.
It really truly is. You keep doing what you're doing, because I like what you're doing. Like the little bit that we touched on before we went live, and the model that you're going for, and the education that you're trying to provide for smaller contractors and stuff like that. That's awesome.
It's absolutely
and if
awesome.
they don't like it, they can take what they need and leave the rest. And if they were smart, that's what they would do, because all things don't work for everybody
Yeah.
anyhow.
There's never a one size fits all. Right?
Exactly.
Here's just some more information, a different perspective. Do with it what you choose, and that's my entire approach.
Yep.
I'm
Absolutely.
not here to tell you how to run your business.
Nope.
Here's just a couple other things that you could stick in your tool belt if you need them.
Good
Yeah,
for
So to
you.
speak.
I love your reasoning behind everything, the whole education thing, because just like a team, our industry is almost like a team, and your team is only as good as your weakest link, and our industry is only going to be as good as the weakest contractor out there.
Absolutely.
If they're out there.
I 100% agree.
So offering that education to people that don't even realize that they need the education, all the
Seriously.
smaller guys,
Yep.
because let's face it, man, our industry is sometimes not even just looked at. Bubba put this a really good way. This industry was his last stop. It was the place that he had to go because of prior convictions, prior drug abuse. You have a rap sheet, you have a resume that isn't too attractive to a Fortune 500 company or something like that. So a lot of people in our industry are turned to our industry by default. You know what I mean? And just realizing that you can make something out of this. We got a studio full of guys here that made a lot of bad decisions in our life, but we wouldn't change anything about that. That's why I went to the construction industry.
Yes.
Because
And I
it
get
was an
that.
easy job to get. But the roofing industry has opened my eyes and opened up the avenues to me on so many things that I never thought it would. And I think everyone sitting here right now, and yourself included, Jen, can probably agree with that.
Absolutely.
No
I didn't go to
regrets.
college, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't do things the way everybody thought I should do.
Me either.
I chose the hard way, and I've had moments in my life that I'm not proud of, and I love what I do. I love the fact that I can help and support people with the probably the largest purchase on their home that they'll ever have to make. And I love that I have a good feeling and integrity around it, that I know what I'm doing is helping and supporting people in the right direction,
Yeah.
both from the industry side and from a customer service side.
For sure.
Excellent.
And we love what you do.
Absolutely.
Well, thank
Absolutely.
you guys.
Yep. We'll
Absolutely.
support
So do you
you.
know we've been doing this for an hour and a half?
Time flies when you're having fun, man.
Whoops.
Isn't that insane? That
It
was
is.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
good.
That is
My
definitely
kids are
good.
like, my kids have not killed themselves yet, which
That's
is
good.
really good.
Yeah.
Because they've been waiting on me to take them to
Aw.
the pool, very, very patiently. And I should probably fulfill. I don't
Yes.
make promises that I can't keep.
That's right.
As like, I'll say I'll do my best, but if I don't have absolute control over something, I won't. And I did promise them that we would go to the pool because I have complete control over that, barring that the pool doesn't shut down.
No.
Right.
So I should probably do.
Yes.
No, you're not going to wrestle and fight. Would you like to? They heard me talking about them. They're wonderful.
Uh-huh.
That's
No.
awesome. Well, you do your family stuff,
Yes.
Jen. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate this awesome show. This has been a great show. And folks, make sure you guys hop over to her Facebook page, give her stuff
Yes,
some
please.
love. She is leading the industry
Absolutely.
in a lot of the things that she's doing. All the females out there, all the TC Backer females, this is a winner right here, man. for sure. So keep doing
And we're
great
coming
stuff.
up to your area, so make sure that you guys come see us when we're there.
What, in Columbus, Ohio?
Are we doing Philly?
I didn't see Philly. I saw Columbus was the closest. Philly would be great.
Hey, that is.
Oh my God, you are 9/26 in September.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think I
didn't
put
look out
Philly
that
on
far
there.
because I thought maybe Columbus isn't too far from here.
We'll have
Cool.
to take you out and
No,
get you a cheesesteak, man.
That would be awesome because I have never been to Philly, so
Beautiful town.
I
Yes.
will
Lot of
count
history.
on that.
Yes.
Yes.
For sure. Viewers,
Okay.
thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for
Thank you,
constantly
and
supporting.
thank you guys for the opportunity. I appreciate
Everyone,
it.
like Jen says, man, just keep doing epic shit.
That's right.
You know,
Absolutely.
That's your tagline.
Epic shit.
Keep doing
That's
epic
all
shit.
we do.
That's right.
So
I
we
have
appreciate
I have
you.
a sign in my house that says, "As for me and my family, we do epic shit."
Right on.
Awesome. We love it.
I love it.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much, Jen.
guys.
Yep. You have a
See
great
ya.
night.
Talk to you soon.
TC
Bye.
Backer family, it's been a great episode.
Yes.
Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys next week at 7 p.m. For episode 120 of Behind the Toolbelt TC Backer Construction. Have a good night.